It's an exciting time in our community. Local elections are June 30, and that is a Tuesday. And we would like to encourage everyone to get out to vote, but not just to get out to vote. We want you to know who you're voting for and why. Not based on just talk or things that are written in a paper or something like that, but actually on facts by going to the candidates and talking with them. So we've put together a series in which you can know your vote. And I want to invite now my co-host up. And the inspiration for this series, that would be Zoe Loeser. Zoe, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah, so with a lot of the things going on in the world, I realized that one of the most important things I could do for my community is to be educated on my local lawmakers and make sure that I am voting people into office that I feel like are going to do a good job. Like I said in our introductory video, I don't know a lot of these candidates, and so wanted to, in a different world that is not coronavirus, sit down and have a conversation with them and learn about the things that they're passionate about and how that meshes with my goals for the community, or might be a different track than something I'd be interested in going down. And since we can't do that, and I would have to do that online anyway, I think it's a great opportunity for us to broadcast that. And so I just sent it out into the world asking if anyone would be interested. And Daniel and his wonderful platform with Shawnee CTV, we are interviewing Ward 2. That is our Lake Ward. And that is Elliot Shuler and Bob Weaver.
Both great guys, and both of them shared some time with us. Sit back, enjoy, and please get to know your vote. Let's go to the interview. And now we have Ward 2 commissioners or candidates for the Ward 2 commission seat. And of course, I'm going to bring in Zoe. Come on in, Zoe. Now, this is all you're doing. I want you to know this is, golly, how much fun have we had so far talking to the commissioners?
It's been really interesting. I've really enjoyed getting to know people. Like I said at the very beginning, I don't know a ton of the candidates, so it's been a delight to get to know these leaders in our community.
Well, and today we've had some very patient candidates as we work through some different things, and so let's bring them on. We have candidates for Ward 2, which includes the lake area for people who do not know, and that is Elliot Shuler and Bob Weaver. Guys, thank you both for being with us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Now, Mr. Weaver, tell us a little bit, just real quickly, 60 seconds or less, what in your background you want to talk about for us?
Well, since this is a race for Shawnee City Commission, I think experience and leadership are the most important qualities that I bring to the table. I've been previously Shawnee City Commissioner as well as state representative for 12 years from Shawnee. So those two areas of government are critical, I think, particularly at this time with having so many new members. We've got most of the staff at the City Hall that are in leadership with less than a year's experience. And even the Shawnee City Commission has a minimal amount of experience overall. So I think my leadership and my experience has been critical. But I also, I've worked for 2 U.S. senators in the past, and politics has just kind of been a part of my life, and working and providing leadership to the citizens is what I do.
Fantastic. Zoe?
Oh, you want me to introduce myself or introduce Elliot?
No.
Elliot,
I want you to help Elliot.
Tell us about what you think you should be commissioner and what you bring to the table.
I also believe that leadership is extremely important for this position. I have a master's degree in leadership. I have owned and operated 3 businesses in Shawnee. My wife and I have been very active with the community. I have been an educator and a blue-collar worker in this town for 16 years. I have a passion for training young men and women to go to work, get jobs. I've worked with all of the manufacturing components in Shawnee. And I would like to take that knowledge and those skills that I have and help move our city government forward for all citizens.
That's great.
That's fantastic. And we have a community member who has a passion in the job that she does. So she explains something for a moment, and then she asks you a question. So let's go right to our first question. And I don't think that I have to introduce her because I think she introduced herself. Let's see. Make it so.
Hello, my name is Alicia Carter, and I work for Gateway to Prevention and Recovery as their wellness director. Prior to being their wellness director, I was a therapist, and so I got to work with a lot of our community members who are recovering from their addictions and mental health issues. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of effort and determination and commitment to be part of that treatment process and to restructure and rebuild your entire life. But what is interesting is, as difficult as that process is, one of the things that has always been a struggle for our patients and for our staff is our patients having access to treatment due to lack of public transportation. And so for our community members to get sober, they absolutely have to get treatment. But not only that, they have to be able to do the things that support their treatment in everyday life, whether that's getting to the grocery store or their medical appointments, to their probation officers, to their drug testing, to their jobs, to visit their children. And if they can't get where they need to go, they can have all the motivation in the world, but logistically cannot make it work. And we are so thankful for the transit systems that exist, COTS and CPN, but they're limited, and our patients need a wide variety of hours to travel at different times and be able to go further distances, and it not be something that is another barrier and struggle to try to coordinate. So I guess my question is, what does public transportation look like in your mind? Do you see that as important? And if you do, what are some ideas you have to get that moving forward in Pottawatomie County? Thank you so much.
And for anyone who can see, that question about public transportation can be repeated, but also it can be read on the screen, perhaps, if you can see it. And the first to answer this question will be Elliot, please.
I'm definitely not opposed to public transportation. I think that there is a need for many people. If it's the situation that I can't get to work, I can't get to court, I can't get to drug court, those sorts of issues, then we definitely need to look to our local churches, any organizations we might have. And then if the city needs to step in and do something to help our citizens get on the right track, then we need to look at that. We need to try to find funds to be available for that, find methods, find avenues that we can get there. If we don't deal with these people that have substance issues that have to get to these appointments, we're going to deal with them one way or another. So I would rather work with them and deal with them in a way to help them, help their lives, help them rehabilitate themselves and be productive citizens, as opposed to them not be able to get to the appointments they need to be able to get the services they need, and then for them to end up back in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Zoe?
Yeah, I wonder, Elliot, you work at Gordon Cooper. Have you seen transportation be an issue for some of your students or be a barrier for some people to get the education they need?
I've had several students that were involved with drug court, that were involved in issues where they couldn't get to court, they couldn't get to their appointments. That I had a student last year that because he was part of the drug court system, he may be called out at 8:30 in the morning during one of my classes to go down and immediately take a drug test. And if they don't get down there when they're called, it can be a consequence to them to where they're in violation of their drug court. And if they do not have reliable transportation or someone who cares enough to be able to pick them up, take them where they need to go, to take care of their needs on that, they're going to end up back in the system. So we have to figure out a way to service those people in a way that they're moving forward in their life and not going back into the system just because of a transportation issue.
Yeah, it's a real life issue for so many in our community. Mr. Weaver, what does public transportation look like to you? Is it important to you? What are your plans to move public transportation forward in Pottawatomie County?
Well, as was said by Zoe, we're really fortunate. We have CPN, we have COTS, we have Salvation Army, we have Neighboring 101. Those are some people, some programs that provide transportation to people in need. But to be honest, the bottom line is money. Our community does not have the funds. We're really fortunate in Shawnee to have those programs that we have. Also churches, volunteers. We've had a lot of people in the community step up to help those, but there's not a magic answer of being able to come up with funds to provide additional transportation, particularly immediate needed transportation. Elliot mentioned student there at the school. To have a program that could immediately go pick someone up and take them to that type of an appointment is just almost unheard of, and it would be a great thing to have. But as far as being realistic in our city budget, in our size of town, we're lucky to have the programs that we have, and we could always do a better job, but it just takes money.
So in following up to that, Bob, what about something, I mean, just as a community member, and I think of Gordon Cooper, and then I think of a square or a rectangle or something that might come like from Main Street or from Beard Street or from Farrell, is something that goes down to, say, the West Tech Road and turns around there and then comes down and goes over to Kickapoo via 45th and then goes down down Kickapoo back downtown. And we just have some sort of, 2 or 3 small vans that they just are taking that route, picking up people. When I think of common sense, solutions like that, I don't understand why it cannot happen. Do you have any insights into that?
No, I don't. There's no doubt it would be great to have more, and to have, the route you suggest is probably a good one, but I don't have any plans for what we can do for public transportation. There's a need always for more, but to ask specific, it's going to take money. There may be grants out there, but as far as the city and having the funds to do that, it would be, if we did, it would be something that would be wonderful, but funds just realistically aren't there, and they're probably not going to be there for any time in the near future. But we are lucky to have the programs we have now. I mean, they're providing a great deal of need in our community, without a doubt.
Sure. Right. Yeah. That's one thing that we have a gift of in this community is really generous nonprofits. Okay, cool. Thank you guys so much for your answers. We will go to the next question.
Good intro for the question, Zoe.
Hi, I'm
Thank
Brandon
you.
Bell. I have a question for all of our candidates out there. So I moved here 3 years ago. There are a lot of hidden gems in our community, like Shawnee Twin Lakes. I would like to know how you plan to exploit and utilize some of those assets that we have right here in our community to share those with our residents and use those more as a community asset for the community of Shawnee.
And so just for clarification, because we are in Ward 2 and Shawnee Lake is in Ward 2, Brandon did mention in specifics Shawnee Lakes, and that's really what we want to talk about here, is we want to hear what your plans are for Shawnee Twin Lake areas, to share those amongst our residents and use them more as a community asset for all residents, in particular Shawnee Twin Lakes. And we start with Bob.
Shawnee Twin Lakes is a great jewel. We're really fortunate in Shawnee to have it as our water supply, but it's been neglected for so long. I'm certainly, in fact, we've got 2 swim beaches that are free to the public, and they're greatly utilized. We have just one right around the corner from where we live, And during the summer months, it's crowded constant. The roads are terrible. The beach is terrible. There is a buoy system, and it's frankly not adequate as far as a good place for the public. We're in dire need, those of us that live at the lake, for having roads maintained, gravel, grading. It's an expense, but I say that the first thing I think we need to do with Shawnee Twin Lakes is maintain what we have. Before we look at doing anything other, as far as expansion, we need to maintain our parks, we need to maintain our roads, and we certainly need to protect our water supply. That's where we get our water, and that's what we're really depend on, and that's our crown jewel.
What about you? Oh,
Zoe?
I'm going to ask questions first. Okay, so I'm curious too. Do you think that looking toward, maybe not short term, but longer term, looking towards developing Shawnee Twin Lakes, what do you see the benefits to the residents that live around that area might be? What might be some cons as well?
Are you still on me there, Zoe?
Yeah. So you, Mr. Weaver.
Certainly orderly growth is the most reasonable thing to consider. Certainly not having just growth for growth's sake, but orderly. We have leases that those of us that reside at the lake, that we have leases that are long-term leases to where we invest our funds to this is our home. This is where we live, and we put a lot of dollars and effort into the property that we have. That is revenue that's been increased. The city many years ago raised the leasehold rate to all of us, and it'll top out at an amount that is a great increase. And my understanding when the city did that was that funding was supposed to go back in to help improve the area, which in fact it has done. So I think some of the cons, you can certainly have too much growth that your area won't support. And we're, in all honesty, the traffic at the lake, we're not a large lake. The Twin Lakes are two combined, but we're not by any means considered large. So certainly overgrowth. We don't have lake patrol at the lake. That's the more traffic that you have, the more necessary that you have for lake patrol and enforcement. And that becomes really critical if you get too large without having it orderly and organized.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You mentioned a substantial increase in the recent future, Bob. I understand those leases run about $700 a year. Is that correct?
They'll top out at.
We lost Bob.
Well, Elliot, let's turn the question to you. How do you
Elliot,
utilize the city asset?
Well, one second.
Oh,
One
okay.
second. Bob's back. Go ahead, Bob.
A phone call came in and that messed everything up.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It's $1,200 a year. It's going to graduate up to that amount, so it will cap out at $1,200 a year. That's correct.
Thank you very much. Now, Elliot, how do you plan to utilize city assets within our community to share those amongst our residents and use them more as a community asset for all residents, in particular, Shawnee Twin Lakes?
Well, Daniel, I spoke with Chance Allison, our city manager, recently and asked him about the plans for the Twin Lakes. I know that they're going to come in and update the bathrooms. They have plans to work on some of the swim and beach area and try to improve that. I feel that the Twin Lakes have a natural beauty. And so I don't want to, or I would hate to see them come in and overdevelop the land, overdevelop our natural resource. This is our water supply. And if you get too many boats, if you get too much development going on, I think that could damage the water supply. I think we need to look at stuff that would benefit the residents, stuff like kayaking, things like fishing, getting the bathrooms where they're nice and usable, and then to get the park and rec service to come out and maintain the property to where when people do come out, that it's a much more enjoyable experience, that there's a little more room to spread out, and that you can bring family, maybe do birthday parties out there. So more of quality of life type of stuff than quantity per se.
Thank you. What is it that when your family comes into town, Elliot, and they come to your house at the lake, what is it that you guys enjoy to do, and what do they like to go do as far as city provided services around the lake?
Well, before we owned a property, just like everyone else, we would go out and sit on the swim beach. We would just drive around a lot of times, just seeing the natural beauty. Last weekend, my uncle and my brother and the kids all came over for my daughter's birthday. We just sat out at the picnic table and just enjoyed just the beautiful view, the nice cool air coming in. I noticed when I had a house in town and it was 90 degrees, it's a different 90 degrees than it is at the lake. So when people can come out to the lake, enjoy the nice cool weather, just enjoy the scenic beauty, turn off the television, turn off the internet, put your phone away, just talk and visit, have some family time. I think that's a quality of life that maybe a lot of people miss out on because there's just not enough room, or maybe that the beach areas are not developed enough to allow as many people as would want to come out there to enjoy it.
I agree. I'm like one of my best right-hand men. I'm going to lose for a few days because they're going to have to fly to the coast to go to a beach. I'm thinking, why not just drive 20 minutes, drive 5 minutes, go to the beach at our lake? You don't have to go all the way to the coast. That was a joke, everyone. My attempt. That was, never mind. Go ahead, Zoe. You're muted, Zoe.
Well, I know. I'm trying, noises at houses. Well, no, I think that's great. I grew up on a lake myself, and, I consider water to be one of my happy places. And so to see, but I don't even really think about Shawnee Twin Lakes as a place to go. So I would really love to see it draw more eyes. Okay, cool. Let's move to question number 3.
Question 3.
My question for our panelists is, how do they anticipate working closely with school districts to create partnerships? And then also a second question, how do they anticipate creating partnerships and including our tribal entities in those partnerships as well? They're critically important to the work we do as schools and the way that they give and help support us. So I'm interested in hearing how any of our panelists might work to include our tribal partners and create those stronger partnerships with the city as well.
And so, of course, that was our superintendent who's doing a fine job, Dr. April Grace, I'm sorry. And she asked a very pertinent question. How do you anticipate working closely? And we'll first go to Mr. Weaver. How do you anticipate working closely with school districts to create partnerships? How do you anticipate working alongside tribal entities in school partnerships and in general?
I can barely hear. The distortion is so severe right now that I couldn't hear her at all. And
okay. So Bob, I'm going to ask you, Bob. I'm going to ask you to drop off and click back on with. I think that'll end up solving some of your problem. And if you don't mind, we will have Elliot answer that question first. And when you come back, we'll have you answer that question. So, Elliot, are you able to hear, and are you good to answer the question?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to answer that question.
Okay.
I think the tribe has been very underutilized in our community. They are the largest employer by far of people in Shawnee. There are a lot of tribal citizens here. I think the tribe has done wonderful things in the city of Shawnee, and anything we can do to try to form a bridge, make some kind of connection with the tribe, have them come into our schools, have them talk about tribal government, talk about what they do, the roads they're building, the things they're doing for our community. I think we need to really go out and try to extend a hand to the tribe, get them involved with our city. I think they're a large presence and could be a positive presence if the city of Shawnee would be willing to work with him closely. I know we do here at Gordon Cooper. We value the tribe, and we try to do everything we can to keep a good working relationship with them.
Zoe?
I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I don't know that I have any follow-ups. I do. Okay, go for it, Daniel.
So there are 4 tribes within the Shawnee city limits, and all of them very active with their tribal governments. And I just take for granted, Elliot, that when you say that, you mean working with all 4 tribes. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Working with all tribal governments. They are sovereign nations, and we need to treat them with that kind of respect, and we need to treat them as equal partners in the area. Their citizens live in Shawnee, and they pay taxes here. They work here. So I think we need to do what we can to try to have the best relationship we can with all the tribal governments, and try to get them to work with us, try to get us to work with them. We're all in this together to make the best Shawnee we can.
Okay. Bob, can you hear us now?
I can. I still have a little distortion in there, but it's much better than it was.
Thank you for your patience. And I'd like to ask you, and Elliot really concentrated on the tribal aspect and the tribes who surround Shawnee. The question being, how do you anticipate working with school districts to create partnerships? How do you anticipate working alongside tribal entities in school partnerships and in general? So I'm going to pass that question to you, Bob, and then Elliot. In fairness, I am going to come back to you to allow you to speak about schools, because I think that might have slipped your mind. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm going to answer that just in the simple way that I'd answer anything. That's just the way that I've always done business, is try to create partnerships and work with others. And I don't have a set agenda to try to identify specifically how we work with schools or with tribes. But as a legislator, I realize the importance of working with the tribes and how important they are to this community and our entire state and nation. But as far as partnerships, I'm the man that develops partnerships. I do that. I believe in that. The schools we have partnerships with, for instance, on Kickapoo Street, I'm sure with right of way, we're going to be working with them as far as taking school right of way. Main thing is we've got to work together in all areas, not schools, not tribes, but in all areas of government. Partnerships are what are going to make what we do in the city actually work. When we get back to working together as partners and not trying to work separate, as many times it's been done in the past.
Thank you, and that's a very good answer. Elliot, would you like to expand a little bit more on your answer to include the schools?
I'm not sure exactly what our city government can do. I would actually encourage our local public schools, and if there was any way that the city could get involved, I would love to be a part of it. But our local schools to maybe bring in some of the tribes, bring in some of their people to speak about how the tribes have affected our area, their longstanding history in the community, what they do. Maybe give the students in the school an idea of the rich heritage, the rich history we have with the tribe, with tribal governments, so that they have a better idea of what their fellow citizen in Shawnee has gone through, what they've done, the accomplishments they've made. Just basically promote some of the history of the tribe in our public school to try to increase some diversity.
Very good, Zoe.
Hey, Bob, you mentioned a right-of-way program. What is that? Can you tell me more about that?
Well, the city had to purchase a great deal of right-of-way to do Kickapoo Street.
Oh, yes, okay.
Part of the right-of-way is from Jefferson School.
Okay.
So that we partner with the school, and I'm sure that there's probably some relief given to the school as far as the right-of-way and either what was purchased or what may be given to the school.
Okay, super. Thanks for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, very good. Okay, on to question number 4.
My question to you is, how do you plan to involve the community in all the decision-making processes that affect our community?
Oh, Timmy
Of course,
Young.
that's our friend, Timmy. You know, Bob, way back when he was called TD Young. Anyway, my jokes are just not going over today.
It's lag.
So, Bob, we'll have you answer that one. How do you plan to involve the community in your decision-making process?
Okay, and I didn't even see who asked the question, much less heard it. I didn't hear it. So
Okay.
as far as trying to involve the community, I think first of all, I think it's very important that we need to let the citizens speak at city commission meetings. We need to not only have them address us, but I think we need to be able to address them back. When I was on the commission before, we did that. We had the public having an opportunity to address us publicly, not just privately. Certainly, I've been visible completely when I was a legislator and as a commissioner before, to allow people to stop me in the grocery store, at church, at any kind of community function. Email is certainly a way, phone calling. I think we need to have forums within not just our wards, but throughout the city, so that when we have issues, particularly hot button issues, we have groups together where we gather and people can get clarification and ask questions and share their concerns and do everything that's possible so that we talk back and forth. I really do believe that communication is the key to everything we do if we're going to involve the public. The public needs to believe and know that they really are the reason that we're there. We work for them, and I'm going to prove that to the people. I've always done that. I want to do it again, and that's what I look forward to doing in serving on the commission.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, obviously the most recent example of maybe some miscommunication would be the bike lanes. If we had not that issue specifically come up, but if there was something else that was potentially going to change is just hard. If there's an issue that you think is good for the community but going to cause some change, how might you handle that differently than what we've seen in the last year or so?
Was that a
Mr.
question,
Weaver?
Zoe?
Yeah. What would you do differently than what would have you learned that you would like to take into your role as commissioner from the bike lane issue?
Is that question to me?
Yes. Follow up.
As far as the bike lanes, I think one of the mistakes that was made that there wasn't adequate communication. There was communication. I think anyone that says that there wasn't has been misinformed. But the communication was somewhat limited, and I don't think people had a real understanding of what was being proposed when it was first brought to the public. So I think any kind of a hot button issue like that needs to have public hearings, public discussions where people can hear kind of what everyone's talking about and maybe develop a plan together instead of a plan being submitted and saying, this is what it is,
Right.
Seeking the input and adjusting that to what makes sense and what the people want.
That's good.
Mr. Shuler, how do you plan to involve the community in your decision-making process?
I would agree that we need to have a lot more input from our citizens. We need to allow them to speak more at city commission meetings. We need to have more committees with citizens involved. We need to get more people voting. We need to get people more active in the city process. I've heard a lot of people say that they feel like their voice is not heard and they've kind of given up. They come out to vote, they vote on a person, and they just hope that that person will do the things they like. And then when you hear from them again is usually when something is done wrong or something that they're not happy with. So we need to make ourselves as commissioners more available to the public. We need to have a lot more citizen committee involvement. And on really major issues, really hot button issues that people may be really torn or split, divided, I think we might need to just put that to a vote. Let the people decide what they want and take it out of the hands of some of the commissioners that they feel may not be representing them or may not be representing their ward, that the commissioners get things together, present that to the public, and let them vote on what they want, what they feel is best for Shawnee.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. But the reality is the city tries over and over and over and over and over to engage and to have people engage. And it's one thing to say we need to open it up and we need to have more citizen participation, have more citizens on committees. And the fact of the matter is, those are always available for citizens who will step up and understand how important it is that they serve in those capacities or to vote. I agree with what you said there, but what I did not hear there, and what I would like to hear, is what is your plan to make that happen? What would you do, Elliot, or Mr. Shuler, I apologize, to make that change actually take place? And if you don't know yet, or I mean, that's fair too, but I just have to point that out in the sense of the city really does try to do those things. Is there something that you have seen or experienced that you would do differently, or a new idea you would bring to the table to make it happen?
Yes. So you brought up that there are opportunities and that there are ways that people can come in and do that. But the issue we have there is when we do those things, when we have those opportunities, let's say a meeting on the bike lanes, and you only have 4 or 5 people show up. What that tells me is that opportunity wasn't the right opportunity. That we might look at what kind of opportunities are presented, maybe a meeting on Wednesday night or a meeting on Friday night. If nobody comes to that, we as a city need to say, those are not the kinds of opportunities that are allowing for the maximum citizen input. And we need to look for what is it that most of the citizens would do. And if that is get on Facebook and do a Facebook forum, maybe do a virtual meeting where people can do it from their house, maybe just a mail out ballot, maybe just a poll of some sort. But we need to really look at what we're doing now. And if it's not giving us maximum citizen input, we need to start trying different things until we find a method or a vehicle to get as many citizens involved or on board as we can.
Yeah, to not settle for, oh, we tried.
Yeah, we tried. 7 people showed up. Oops, well, the city just they don't care. Well, maybe we are doing stuff that worked in the 1950s, saying, hey, on Friday night, everybody show up at town hall and we'll talk about it. Well, we're in a different era now. Maybe we need to go to a more digital format or go to just something different. And we may have to cast the line out several times to find the best method, but we should never just settle for, hey, 7 people showed up. The community doesn't care. The citizens don't care. We'll just decide it on our own. I don't think we can do that as a city anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
I like the pun of we'll just cast a line out there for the Ward 2 commission seat. Let's just cast a line for the lake. I like
what do you got, Mr. Weaver?
Sorry, Zoe, what?
Oh, it looks like Mr. Weaver had something.
Yes, please, Bob.
I think one more avenue, and those were some good suggestions, Mr. Shuler. One more avenue that we could use is our water bill. Everybody in the city limits receives a water bill, and that's a good way whenever there's an issue that needs to be addressed. People could be contacted and notified of action and things being taken up by the commission by their water bill. Just a quick interjection there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Good idea. Okay, Zoe.
Okay. Yeah, last-ish question coming up.
This is a good one. They're all good. They're all good questions.
I have children that are getting ready to start college and raise young families. Young families today require specific activities and a certain lifestyle in order to consider settling down in that community. What activities and lifestyle will you bring to Shawnee in order to attract young families to spend their dollars here and raise their families?
I would say this is actually a pretty personal question for me, just as a relatively young professional who has not yet started her family but plans to. Like I'm just you got a high bar on this one. This one means a lot to me.
And just to repeat it for you, Bob, and Elliot answers this first. So what activities and lifestyles will you bring to Shawnee to attract young families to spend their dollars and raise their families in Shawnee? Mr. Shuler.
Gosh.
Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I think there's a lot of things we can do as a city to help bring people and retain people. I teach students manufacturing. I teach them how to go and get a high-paying job, how to keep a high-paying job, how to move up in those areas. So I think it's very important that the city tries to attract, to bring in employers and to keep employers in this area that pay high-paying wages. I know we've encouraged a lot of development. We've encouraged a lot of businesses to come in, and we need to keep that going. We need to have a place that when our young men and women graduate high school, that they have jobs to go to, they have places to go to. As far as activities, we also need to make sure that our parks are nice. We need to make sure that our infrastructure is good. We need to start a system where we're planning years out to make Shawnee the place to be, where people aren't driving to Oklahoma City, they're not driving to Tulsa, they're not driving other places to go, but that people from the surrounding communities are driving to Shawnee because they want to come here. There are things to do. So I would try to create a pro-business environment, a pro-development environment, and I would really work on our streets, our roads, and our other infrastructure to allow people that when they drive through Shawnee, that it's a pleasant drive and that things look beautiful and that they want to come here to go to our downtown and look at new and prosperous businesses, and that they feel good about it and they want to spend their money in Shawnee.
Very good.
I agree with that.
I don't have a follow-up.
No, I think that's good. I think thinking about economic development is important. Of course, the other things they look at are neighborhoods and schools. But I don't know that I necessarily have a follow-up. What do you think, Mr. Weaver?
There are so many things in a community that attract people, and whether young or old, it really doesn't matter. They're kind of the same. Traffic congestion has become really terrible in this town. We've grown so much and had so little money to plan. We haven't planned properly in the past, and the growth has just been tremendous as far as traffic's concerned. That's something that we have to deal with, because we have people that say they won't even travel Kickapoo or Harrison because of the tremendous amount of travel. The congestion from the mall coming back to Highway 18 is something that has been a problem forever. We need to look at alternatives to some of the congestion of major places that we have. Without a doubt, code enforcement has been a real problem for many people trying to come into the community. Pro-development. We've got to be trying to find a way to help people when they're trying to develop and grow in this town. Instead of saying you can't do it, we need to say, all right, you're not following the codes and the plans, but this is how we can help you do what you're supposed to do. I think we've been lax on that in the past for many, many years. Just try to find a helpful way to work with people. Our parks, I'm on the Parks Committee, and we have our two major parks from our sales tax that we voted on from the public that are about to move forward, the Kid Space Park and the one downtown, Woodland Park. We're excited about that move. That's going to be great for the families, but we need to do a better job of maintaining our parks. Our parks, quite frankly, are an embarrassment. The maintenance that has been there, our airport, which is an attractive facility in our town where many people come in, a lot more people than we realize. I've previously been on the airport advisory board, and it's amazing the number of people that come into Shawnee by way of the airport. So we need to make our entryways, as well as what's on the inside, more attractive. We need to enforce codes. We need to work toward beautification. Beautification is something that protects me as a neighbor. That's what, protect me, protect our neighbors, protect the whole community as far as beautification efforts and maintaining what we have.
I really appreciate the idea of maintaining what we have. I think particularly when it comes to tax dollars going to our schools that sometimes have a harder time because the houses in that area aren't the property tax is not bringing in as much money. So I think I personally, when we decide to find our forever home, want to live in Central Shawnee. So I appreciate your mention of that.
Very good. And we have a final question. It's a bonus question, and I kind of received your permission, it seemed like, when I talked about it early, and I want to ask, but I also want to say thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us, guys, and to both of you worked diligently to get through technical difficulties. Yes. Thank you for that.
Yes.
And this is kind of your closing, because this question is really kind of a general question. You could take it just about anywhere you want. So please feel, in 60 seconds or so, use this question as your closing remarks, if you would. And with that, we will go to bonus question.
Bonus question. We need music or something.
Hi, my name is Vicki Pinson. I'm a semi-retired educator at Shawnee Public Schools. What do you hope to accomplish as a city council member?
Very good. We start with Bob Weaver.
I hope to accomplish what I've promised through my whole life of public service: to be accessible to the public, to be responsive, to be responsible, to listen, to make informed decisions, to not go in thinking I know everything, because I don't. I'm going to listen and learn, try to learn our budget. I've heard a lot of complaints and concerns about funding and finances in our city government, and I want to get to the bottom of it. And if in looking at that, I find that there's some discrepancies and issues that have concerned the public, like they have me as well, I want to get to the bottom of it and get the answers. I want us to be responsive to the needs. Many people say, what are your top priorities? And it's easy to say 1, 2, 3 things, but we deal with so much more than blue zones and the lake and our parks and our roads. Everything that we deal with in city government, we have to be responsible in the way that we address them. So I think studying the issues, being in the forefront, and being very open about what we're doing to let the public know exactly where we're coming from, what our concerns are, and taking a tough stand. Many of our stands that we take are going to be unpopular with the public. When you have to tear down a building, it's terribly unpopular, but it's some of the things that we have to do. So I think the main thing is listening to the public, responding to the public, being honest and straightforward, and doing our job to run this city.
Very good. And Mr. Elliott, what do you hope to accomplish as a city council member?
As a city commissioner for Ward 2, I want to be able to represent all the wards. My hope is that I can help through my experience get our budget where it needs to be, get the right people in place in our city government to make this a town for everyone, for every citizen. We have everywhere from homeless to gated community in Shawnee. We have young and old. We have a very diverse population. And what I've seen in my experience at running for this is we have a lot of people that are disenfranchised or they feel disenfranchised with the way city government has worked, with the way we've done things, that they don't feel that their voice is heard. And I want to make myself available. I want to help kind of bring people together to make Shawnee the beautiful place that it is, or to open people's eyes to that. We have had a lot of positive growth. We have a lot of commercial development. We have done a lot as far as sirens. Our lighting's coming up. I think Shawnee is on the right track. I think we're moving forward. I think things are great here, and they're getting better. And I want to keep kind of that positive movement going forward. And I want to bring people together so that everyone's on the same team, everyone's on the same page, and that we're all working towards that same goal, which is making a Shawnee that everyone is happy to live in, happy to come to, and that they feel good about, and that we're all working together.
Thank you. And Zoe, do you have a follow-up? I do.
Okay, go for it. I'll think about it.
Bob, you mentioned in your answer, the demolition of homes, which I do support in the sense of the eyesores need to go. I do understand that that was part of the revenues that were spent that some in our community keep saying is missing revenue. It was actually spent on demolishing houses or old dilapidated buildings and structures. I would like to know simply, very quickly, if that is a program that you would still support, the demolition of dilapidated buildings around town.
Absolutely. That's something that needs to be in the budget. It probably needs to be increased tremendously from what it's been in the past. We have a lot of derelict facilities that are really dangerous. Many of them are people are going in and there's drug use and there's vagrancy, and absolutely, I'd support that.
Yeah, and I do too. And I was actually happy that those funds were spent the way that they were spent in that area and in others. And Mr. Shuler, you mentioned lighting being involved around town, and I'm very interested in the lights being on along I-40 at night, every night. And we seem to not have funding or something that keeps those lights dim or out. And I'm wondering if you would fully support getting I-40 lit back up for our community.
I would fully support lighting in a lot of locations we don't have right now. I think safety is a big concern for Shawnee. I think it's a big concern for our citizens. We are here to protect our citizens, and lighting, just being able to see, being able to police the areas and areas you can see, I believe is critically important for the city of Shawnee. If we want to attract people here, we have to be a safe town. We have to be a safe community that when people come, they're not coming here in the dark, and that they feel good that they can walk around. So yes, I would support using our monies where we can afford it. Obviously, we can't light up all of Shawnee, but we need to address those areas that need to be addressed, and we need to invest in that so that everyone in Shawnee feels safe and that their security is taken care of in that manner.
And point of clarification, just for me, I know that in town, OG&E is responsible for replacing the street lights. Is that the same on I-40? Is OG&E responsible for that? Who does that? Do we know?
The way that I understand that, Zoe, is actually it's a city responsibility that was done through the contract when all of that was enhanced through ODOT. And my point on that is that I believe that it would raise retail sales tax in our area at night from people driving off of I-40 because it is lit up. It feels, as you touched on, Mr. Shuler, much safer, and it looks like much more vibrant, a lot more choices, so we pull more people off. And I think that that would then in turn add to the funding that we can have for security within our community, though I feel like our community is very, very secure already with the job that is being done. So anyway, that being said, as I just took it over there at the end, I apologize about that, guys. Mr. Weaver, Mr. Shuler, thank you very much. And would you like to say goodbye to everyone?
Thank you for having us, Daniel.
And Zoe. It was Zoe's idea.
Thank you, Zoe, for having us.
Absolutely. It's so nice to get to chat with you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you both. Have a great night. So Zoe, episode 1 of Know Your Vote.
That's right.
Commission Ward 2.
That's right.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the most toss-up race for me. I haven't heard a lot about either of the gentlemen. I don't know either of them. And so, the whole time I'm like, I just went back and forth. This was really valuable for me, I think.
Well, I hope that it was valuable for everyone. And it certainly was valuable to me, Zoe, when you reached out, just as a community member to say, hey, does anybody want to try to get to know these guys a little bit more? Just by being an active community member who really wants to know the truth, really wants to know what's going on. that's how we make better decisions, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Voter education is key. And, you know, I think especially during this kind of crazy season that we're in, the people who make our laws really matter. They matter today, and they're going to matter 10 years from now. And so I think to have an awareness of who we're voting for, that we know our vote. And I think Daniel made a really good point in our initial video that it's hard when you walk into a polling place and you don't know who's on the ballot. And that can even discourage people from going in to vote. So I think that this is super important, and I'm really grateful for the experience.
Wow, and we've given everybody almost an hour, Zoe. An hour of getting to know Ward 2 candidates.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, it flies by when you're having fun, so at least it flew by for you and me, and everybody else will go through the drudgery.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They can just read the captions. It'll be fine.
That's right. So for Zoe Loeser, I'm Daniel Shaughnessy, and for our whole backstage crew, we want to thank you for watching. And remember, we are City of Five Nations, and in the City of Five Nations, together, we're building community one season at a time. See you. Go vote June 30th. June 30th, Tuesday.
And do our next one.